Hello, this is Dr. Grande. Today's question is, can I analyze the case of Edward Anderton and Jocelyn Kirsch? Just a reminder, I'm not diagnosing anybody in this video, only speculating about what could be happening in a situation like this. If you enjoyed this video, please like it, subscribe to my channel, and consider supporting me on Patreon. I will put the link to Patreon in the description for this video. First, I'll look at the background of this case, move to the timeline of the crime, then offer my analysis. Edward Kyle Anderton was born in December 1982 and lived in Everett, Washington. He went by the name Ed and was raised in a middle-class family. Ed moved to Philadelphia and studied economics at the University of Pennsylvania. After graduating in 2005, he stayed in the area and worked for Johnson & Johnson. He then took a job as a financial analyst for the real estate equity firm Lubert Adler, making almost $65,000 a year. In September 2006, Ed met a Drexel University student named Jocelyn Sarah Kirsch at a bar. She had been born in July 1985 and raised in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. Her father was a plastic surgeon and her mother was a nurse. At some point, the couple divorced, but Jocelyn still had an affluent lifestyle. Ed and Jocelyn became romantically involved and lived in a two-bedroom apartment in the Rittenhouse Square neighborhood of Philadelphia. They rented this apartment for $3,000 a month. Now moving to the timeline of the crime. Starting in November 2006, Ed and Jocelyn engaged in a conspiracy involving fraud and theft. Here are just some of the offenses they committed over the course of a year. In December 2006, they burglarized the home of two friends and took their identity for a fraud scheme. They used stolen identity information to apply for credit cards. In January 2007, the couple went to a bar in Philadelphia and took a purse that was unattended. Using a corporate credit card issued to one of Ed's coworkers, the couple purchased a $2,600 computer. In February, they obtained identity information by posing as human resources from a victim's employer. Ed burglarized a locker in the men's locker room of his office building's fitness center. The couple used stolen credit cards to purchase over $15,000 worth of items over the next 2 months. In June 2007, they sold a computer obtained by fraud on eBay for $2,000 and deposited a forged check for $6,000. In July, Ed posed as a college administrator in the finance department and called a victim saying he needed identity information to issue a refund check. In September, the couple used an illegally obtained credit card to buy $8,000 worth of electronic equipment. In October 2007, the couple burglarized an apartment in the same building where they lived and took identity information. Using an illegally obtained credit card, they purchased $6,000 worth of jewelry, computer equipment, and clothing. They also deposited about $30,000 in fraudulent checks. In November, they deposited fraudulent checks for over $10,000. This same month, November 2007, their crime spree came to an end after they made a critical mistake. Jocelyn attended a 7-hour appointment at a local salon to get hair extensions. Using the alias Morgan Greenhouse, she used a credit card from a neighbor to make a $500 deposit before paying the remaining balance with 2 fraudulent checks. The fraud was exposed when the neighbor contacted the hairstylist and inquired about the $500 charge. When the neighbor mentioned that her mail was being intercepted, the hairstylist realized that Morgan Greenhouse must live near the neighbor. The hairstylist offered a description of Morgan, which helped the neighbor to figure out that Morgan was a woman who lived across the hall. The hairstylist contacted the police, who realized that Morgan Greenhouse was Jocelyn Kirsch. At a UPS store near Jocelyn's residence, she was arrested. Later, Ed was arrested as well. The criminal conspiracy experienced a hair extension-facilitated termination. Jocelyn gave new meaning to the term, Bad Hair Day. When the police searched the couple's apartment, they were in for a surprise. They found thousands of dollars in cash and merchandise, fraudulent identification cards, a machine used to make these cards, lock-picking tools, computer spyware, mailbox keys for the apartment building, and front door keys to individual units. When the police disconnected the computers in the apartment, the entire apartment building lost internet access. The police believe that Ed had somehow configured all the internet accounts to run through his computer. On June 2, 2008, Ed Anderton pleaded guilty to conspiracy, aggravated identity theft, access device fraud, bank fraud, and money laundering. After appearing to be remorseful, he was sentenced to 4 years in prison. Ed was released early, moved back to the state of Washington, married, and raised a family. Jocelyn Kirsch had a more turbulent journey through the criminal justice system. While negotiating a plea deal for the year-long conspiracy, Jocelyn lived in California with her mother. While she was there, Jocelyn used a fake identity to obtain a $2,000 bicycle and took a credit card from a coworker at a Starbucks restaurant. On June 17, 2008, Jocelyn Kirsch pleaded guilty to the same charges as Ed. Later, she was sentenced to 5 years in prison and released in November 2011. At her sentencing, Jocelyn said that her regret ran bone deep and she would never repeat this mistake. One thing was for certain: Jocelyn would never be arrested again. In 2012, Jocelyn was arrested again, this time for shoplifting. In 2014, she was sentenced to 5 months in prison for violation of probation. She ended up in Berkeley, California, living with her boyfriend and his 2 children. Jocelyn petitioned the court to change her name, probably because of the massive criminal scheme part. In 2018, Jocelyn was sentenced to 2 years in prison for fraud. Now moving to my analysis. Here are my thoughts on a few areas that stood out to me in this case. Item number 1. Throughout their crime spree, Ed and Jocelyn stole about $116,000 and attempted to steal another $122,000. No one was safe from this couple. They targeted friends, neighbors, coworkers, students, bar patrons. Pretty much anyone who came in contact with them was a potential target. On occasion, they would contact victims and try to buy more time with stolen credit cards. Like they would say they found the credit card and they were going to return it the next day. They wanted to make sure that the person did not report the card stolen. One time when Jocelyn took a friend's debit card, the friend noticed an unauthorized withdrawal and contacted Jocelyn. To explain the situation, Jocelyn said they must have switched their cards by mistake and they had the same PIN number. Amazingly, the friend believed this excuse and did not pursue criminal charges. Ed and Jocelyn ran a scam on eBay where they would buy merchandise using the name of one victim and sell it in the name of another. They also sold items that were never shipped. The couple was not afraid to advertise how they had a lot of money. They traveled to Paris, Montreal, the Caribbean, Hawaii, and Florida, posting images on social media along the way. The couple also attended black tie events, dined at upscale restaurants, and appeared in the society pages of a magazine. The money gained through criminal activity was used to live in the moment. There were no thoughts of the future at all. Item number 2. Before Ed became a criminal, he was a straight-A student in Washington State. His father worked 2 jobs to give him opportunities in life, and his family was thrilled when he was awarded a scholarship to the University of Pennsylvania. Ed was described as friendly, but not gregarious. He would talk to people who approached him, but did not initiate conversations very often. People also said that he was polite, but a bit fake. In July 2007, as the fraud scheme was underway, Ed was fired from the real estate equity firm after taking a trip to the Caribbean with Jocelyn. He had told his boss that he was sick, but the boss figured out this was a lie based on Ed having a tan. When Ed pleaded guilty, he told the judge that he did not view himself as a criminal at first, but acknowledged that he was now a criminal. At that time, his fall from grace was dramatic. He had gone from making almost $65,000 a year to working as a landscaper for $10 an hour. Ed demonstrated a good deal of remorse, and I believe he was genuine. He accepted responsibility and talked about how destructive his actions were to his family members. I would be surprised if Ed ever reoffended. The catalyst for his bad behavior was becoming involved with Jocelyn. Which brings me to item number 3. When Ed and Jocelyn met, Jocelyn had already been on a perilous path for some time. After being a good student for years, she was suspended twice for cheating. Jocelyn had started shoplifting in middle school and had been arrested 3 times for that offense. Friends of hers remember items disappearing whenever Jocelyn was around, like cell phones, sunglasses, kitchen utensils, and art supplies. When Jocelyn was in college, she transformed drastically. She had breast implants, a fake tan, bleached blonde hair, and used purple contact lenses. Jocelyn told people that all her features were natural. Her friends were impressed by how she would spend her father's money and by her grandiose claims. For example, Jocelyn told people that she spoke 11 languages and had qualified for the 2004 Olympics pole vaulting team. Some of her stories were designed to gain sympathy. For instance, she once claimed she had ovarian cancer. A few people found her too intense and too deceptive to be around, but many were attracted to Jocelyn, especially men. Friends said that she was starved for male attention, and Jocelyn claimed that she had cheated on every boyfriend she ever had. When Jocelyn visited Ed's family and friends, she was arrogant and condescending. She refused to play board games with them, drank wine as they drank soda, and appeared to be offended by their pedestrian ways. Item number 4. What role did mental health factors play in this case? When Ed pleaded guilty, he mentioned being treated by a mental health professional, but this wasn't really part of his explanation for the bad behavior. As I mentioned, Ed accepted responsibility for his criminal actions. Jocelyn, on the other hand, heavily depended on her mental health symptoms as part of her argument for leniency. Court documents indicated that Jocelyn had post-traumatic stress disorder, depression, anxiety, and impulse control disorder. Her argument was based on the idea that she was allegedly mistreated when she was young. This caused her to develop mental disorders, and these disorders led to criminal behavior. The term impulse control disorder is not specific. There is no diagnosis by this exact name in the DSM-5 text revision. Rather, there is a section titled Disruptive Impulse Control and Conduct Disorders. This section contains several disorders, including kleptomania. Maybe this is the disorder that Jocelyn was referring to. The term impulse control disorder could have been selected because kleptomania has a stigma associated with it. People suffering from kleptomania steal objects that are not needed for personal use or for their monetary value. They experience tension before the theft and gratification at the time of the theft. The thefts are impulsive. There is no planning. Furthermore, they do not conspire with other offenders. If Jocelyn did have kleptomania, it does not explain most of her criminal behavior. She planned her crimes, had a conspirator in the form of Ed, and did not simply steal for gratification. She used the money for hair extensions, expensive trips, and other benefits. Item number 5. What do I think happened in this case? This is just a theory, my opinion. Jocelyn was impulsive, irresponsible, self-centered, attention-seeking, excitement-seeking, immature, overconfident, manipulative, deceptive, grandiose, arrogant, condescending, falsely believed she was special, and had a sense of entitlement. Despite her irritating behavior, people who knew Jocelyn were drawn to her due to her physical attractiveness, her confidence, and her high-status appearance. Ed was a relatively normal man who was following a traditional career path. He probably never would have committed any crimes on his own. When Ed encountered Jocelyn, he was powerless against her overwhelming beauty. He quickly became lost in her fantasy and committed crimes to satisfy her. The couple never dreamed that they would be caught and, at least initially, did not view their behavior as antisocial or wrong. They were entitled to take whatever they wanted. They deserved it because they were so special. They were not criminals, rather they were the best that society had to offer. This case demonstrates the contagious nature of narcissism. Sometimes when people encounter a narcissist, they run the other way because the behavior is repulsive and offensive. Occasionally, however, people have the opposite reaction. They are mesmerized and drawn into the amazing world constructed by the narcissist. Most people have the potential to become narcissistic. Jocelyn was able to unlock Ed's inner narcissist. She set his worst desires free. The couple had an exciting adventure of pleasure before taking a magical prison journey. After prison, Ed was interested in rehabilitation, whereas Jocelyn was happy with her old ways. Those are my thoughts in the case of Edward Anderton and Jocelyn Kirsch. Please put any opinions and thoughts in the comment section. They consistently generate an interesting dialogue. As always, I hope you found my analysis of this topic to be informative. Thanks for watching.